All right, everybody. Welcome to the third episode of Ed Talk. I'm really glad that you could be here right now. Um, I know I'm going to be talking a bit about the impeachment thing here, but if you're new here, thank you for coming in and stopping by and joining my little Ed Talk here. Just want to point out a couple things. I have added some moderators to the chat, so I don't want anybody to think that we're being moderated and we need to silence anything. I this is getting more popular, and people are going to be a bit abrasive as they get used to each other. I feel like we're going to get a group of really good people who actually want to sit down and get to know each other and talk to each other. And I saw that even a little bit while we were talking. While I was talking to Anna Voltis, we had a really good conversation going, and we got some new people that had just met each other. So that was really good. I really enjoyed that. I like the fact that we saw that. Um, but I do apologize too. I've got a bit of a rough throat. I've been sneezing nonstop for the last 2 or 3 days, and it gives me a little bit of a sore throat. I'm going to try and make it through this without coughing because I don't have a cough button anywhere on my system, and that might get loud to some people. So I apologize for that right away. Yeah, as far as moderators in the chat though, we're not going to have moderators in the chat to silence anybody because I don't believe in that. And the people that I have set up as moderators, I think will respect my wishes, and if they don't, they're going to lose their status as moderators, and that's as simple as that. The only thing that I want to have people there for is like if there's a direct call to a docs or something, the moderator can jump in and pull that out of the chat right away, or if somebody does make I don't want to do personal attacks against other users that are in the chat. If you want to talk about some group of people out there while you're out there, that's fine with me. This is a free speech platform. Just try and keep it somewhat in the land of plausible deniability if you can. And that's going to be that. Additionally, as long as we're going to the chat, I am going to start disabling the chat save function where people will sit and rewatch the chat as they're watching the video. I gave this a lot of thought. A lot of people are going to say that I'm censoring the users that want to sit back and watch my videos. And I assure all of you that that is not what's happening when we are doing this. What's happening when I turn off the chat replay is that you can be as spicy as you want while you're in the chat. There's nothing to stop you at this point. You can say what you want, and someday down the road you're going to want to go ahead and get a more professional job. You're going to want to move up in the world at some point, and you know how the cancel culture is out there these days. People are going to start searching for any little thing that they can find to try and keep you from moving ahead because you may have disagreed with them at one point, and they are not going to find that plausible evidence in my live chat. I'm not going to let them do that. So you can come in here and you can be just as spicy as you want in the live chat, and nobody's ever going to be able to find it again. And anything that you do in the live chat is going to be safe from a future employer, government official, if YouTube decides to dump everything over to the government, or any other possible thing that could cause you harm somewhere in the future. So go ahead and have fun in the chat and be yourselves. But let's start out, because it doesn't look like I have too many people. It looks like I've only got one viewer, and that might actually be myself in the that's watching this right now. But let's go ahead and start out by talking about this impeachment thing. Now, for those of you who saw my solo video, you know the fact that I don't necessarily care about what's going on in impeachment world because this is all stupidity anyway. The Democrats right now have a bone that they can run with, a new toy that they can play with, and all that they're going to do is they're going to try and play with it as best as they can. So they're just going to screw around and do what it is that they want to do with any of this, and they're not going to hold the vote. And they're not going to hold the vote until they can actually plausibly use that. They have the votes in. We all know what they're going to do. We all know exactly what it is that they're going to do. They're just trying to hide this behind and delay this off so they can use it for some sort of political gain at the end. If they do the vote now, Well, right now they can talk about doing the vote because that plays out to their base, and it throws red meat out to the people that just want to scream and complain about the president. But to hold the vote right now means that it would go right to the Senate. It would be a very quick trial because Mitch McConnell holds the Senate. The Democrats would have the opportunity to lay out the evidence that they have, but it wouldn't go anywhere. It would be all over at that point. So they're not going to hold the vote now, and that's because they know that they're going to get an acquittal in the Senate. Now, I've talked about this on the generational gap, I talked about it on Beauty and the Beta, and I talked about it on Stephen Ignoramus' show last week when I did that instead of doing an Ed Talk. And this is a play for the Senate, most likely, because the Democrats have a very hard map for the Senate this time around. They actually have a pretty easy map for 2024 where they might flip a couple of vulnerable seats and they might turn around and retain all of the seats that they have unless they go completely crazy, which they seem to be doing more and more. So right now everything is up in the air. I would not be surprised to see a much redder map going forward, and that would mean that 2024 would not be in play either. But I mean, who can tell the future at this point? We can all just make speculation on what we can see so far, but nobody can really tell the future. Nobody can be there unless somebody develops some sort of time machine and goes forward. But even that, as we saw from all of the great time travel movies like Back to the Future or anything from Star Trek Voyager, because that turned into a complete sci-fi time travel series. Once you go through and you change something, or once you go back and you tell something about or somebody about something that's going to happen in the future, confirmation bias kicks in, and suddenly that's not the future anymore. So that's going to be the end. I mean, nothing is set in stone at this point, and anything could change on a dime. But as of right now, 2024, I'm sorry, no, it was 2022 I meant to say, not 2024, because there is going to be another midterm between this coming presidential election and the next one. But it's 2022 that is a really easy map for Senate Democrats. 2020 is a difficult map. 2018 was almost impossible for Senate Democrats. I don't know why they were trying. Well, I know why they were trying, because they need to wrest control over the government, and they need to get the Senate to vote to disband itself because it's undemocratic. It's a joke. It's supposed to be undemocratic. It is supposed to be a part of the Great Compromise, and they set it up in that fashion so that New York State wouldn't trample all over Rhode Island at the time. And now Rhode Island is one of the more populated states. Rhode Island, I think, has more people than Wyoming does. I think. There's nobody in the chat for me to ask to correct me if it's wrong, but let's look that up as long as I'm on here and as long as there's nobody in the chat right now. Does Rhode Island have more people than Wyoming? Excuse me. Oh, look at that. There's a handy state comparison right there. Yes, as of 2014, Rhode Island had twice the people of Wyoming, and it's barely the size of the county that I grew up in. So, yes, exactly. That's a part of the Great Compromise. And if you think that's a great differential, then imagine what we're doing when we look at a place like New York State, Massachusetts, or New Hampshire versus, or even like Virginia or something versus a place like Wyoming. It's, the Senate was there to make sure that places in the middle of the country that were more agrarian and that held up the infrastructure, because we still need to make food, still got a voice in everything. Still don't have any questions coming in here. One of the things I do want to point out, and this is what I said in my last solo video, is the fact that we do need to take some time and consider the fact that the government only wants to take the time and try and make sure that, well, they're not trying to make sure of this. I question whether or not they have pure intentions or not when they do any of this, but What the government is essentially doing is trying to make sure that your Fourth and Fifth Amendment freedoms go away, and they're doing so by taking away the Fourth and Fifth Amendment freedoms that are guaranteed to the person who is all the way at the top. Excuse me. Because if they can do this to the president, then there's no way that they can't do it to you, the private citizen. And we look at things like this impeachment case and this impeachment hearing. I don't know what to say about this, to be completely honest. It certainly looks fishy, the fact that the form was changed right before the whistleblower came forward. That is way too much of a coincidence, and especially given what we're starting to hear about Schiff and the fact that Schiff went out and rewrote the whistleblower report before it got released, that he's been involved with this for weeks, and he was involved with this for, I guess, months before anything came forward. And then the whistleblower form got changed, and then all of a sudden the whistleblower came forward. While we were distracted by other things like the Saudi Arabia conflict that was going on at the time, the need to impeach Kavanaugh, which now that I'm looking at this more, I think was a red herring because they wanted to try and slip this through without anybody noticing. And this is all strategy. And there's no way that it's just a coincidence that this form changed right before this whistleblower came out. And if they changed the form right before the whistleblower came out, then that means that they had some sort of purpose for doing so. But I don't know. I don't want to be that tinfoily guy. But when the facts are laid out in front of me, I can't help it. This is what I see. This is how I see it. And I do see a grander scheme of things while I'm doing so. So this is something we're going to have to watch very closely as we're going forward, because this is going to be a really scary place if people turn around and can start to use second and third hand knowledge against their enemies. You think what that does to you. You can think of what that does to the people that you care about. And what this does to the fundamental structure of the country. I mean, this is literal gulag shit that they're trying to do right now. Throw dissenters into a cage, make sure that they can't speak out, and that's going to be that. Well, this is the longest I've ever gone into one of these without having viewers in, so I don't know what's going on there. I know I kind of did this at last minute, so that may be a part of it. But I mean, usually I'll get people popping in here. I shut Twitter down. I don't know why. Just want to see if there's anybody out there going. I'd love to see another conversation get going like we had going on over when I had Anna Voltis on. That was great. I loved the fact that I could just go back in there, and I actually had to sit back and scroll quite a ways before we could get to any of the questions that were in there, because I mean, there was such a lively discussion that was going on, and I didn't agree with all of it, but it's free. You are free to have the discussion that you want. You're free to have the discussion that suits best to you, and I hope maybe some people make some friends out there while they're doing this. I don't expect, given the algorithmic changes and what they're doing with YouTube, to all of the people that are sitting there and trying to start out on this. I don't expect to have a community like Christensen does. I'm not going to lie to myself and say that I expect to see that happen. But what I do want to see is kind of the same thing kind of the same thing that he had, where people will start meeting because they all came to this channel and start becoming friends with each other, building a community and building a resistance to a bigger government. The government has got way too big, and we're seeing this partially in the fact that we're seeing this impeachment hearing because somebody dared to step in from the outside that wasn't preened from birth to be in the highest office in the land, which that right there bothers me even more than anything else, the fact that the presidency has so much power. That is a Barack Obama Well, it's not just a Barack Obama. It's been something that's been going on for 60 years. But it's just a growth of the federal government and the Congress trying to shirk their responsibility and ship more of their responsibility over onto the executive branch, so they can do shady and underhanded shit and get money for doing shady and underhanded shit. And yet people still think that the president is in control of the country. The president was never meant to be in control of the country. The president was never supposed to make the rules. It's Congress's job is to make the rules. The president is there to execute the rules that Congress puts into place. What the president is supposed to do is essentially be a police officer, which, okay, maybe not so much of a cop as Kamala Harris is, but to be the chief law enforcement officer of the country. And we're not even supposed to have all of these laws governing people themselves. The presidency is meant to make sure that the states are playing nice with each other, that business can be conducted between the states, and to make sure that our military can cover all of the states at the same time. None of this federal crimes against individuals, especially drug crimes, firearms crimes, anything like that. That was all supposed to be at the state or the municipality level, because you were supposed to be able to look your lawmaker in the face, the person that makes the law, in the face when you go to the market. They didn't really have the grocery store back then, but I mean, you had the town square, and at some point you were going to run into your lawmaker if you went out to the town square. Now we have people that go out to Washington, D.C. and never go back to their districts the whole time that they're there. That's why we have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez right now, and she's turning around and doing the same goddamn thing. No, the government is entirely too big at this point. The government is entirely too big, it's too invasive, and it's too close to any of our individual freedoms, and that's not where it needs to be. Get the government out of everything, get rid of the federal government at this point. We can all go a few years going on state governance or municipality or local governance. And then once we're comfortable with governing ourselves, being a nation by the people for the people again, we can put another government in place to impanel to make sure that we can continue to have laws over what goes on between the states. Now, we're going to keep the interstate system, obviously, because it's already built. There's no sense in tearing something down that was a past mistake that actually makes life easier for a lot of the people, but it's already there. The states will have to adopt the maintenance for the interstate system, which to a point that they do. The states are responsible for the majority of the road construction projects. That's that's the entire reason right now that we're having so much trouble in this state with the interstate system, because we had a fiscal hawk in the governor's mansion for the last 2 terms, and then he just got voted out against somebody who's going to be spend. So we're going to watch that project, which is widening the interstate to 3 lanes from Madison to the state line and from Milwaukee to the state line. They're widening it out. I think it's 4 lanes actually on I-94. But either way, yeah, they're widening the whole interstate out from the major cities down to Illinois to ensure we have better traffic going to Chicago and the shipping lanes that come out of Chicago. But we didn't have the money to do it. We had the money to get a good start on there, but we couldn't sit back and spend it all that much. We'd have a massive deficit if we did, which, for all of the faults that Scott Walker had, and there were many, he did not want our state to be in a deficit. Now, a lot of the Democrats will say that we were in a deficit rather because of the fact that he was in here, and it just wouldn't show up until years later. But I mean, a part of the problem with that is the fact that he was cutting spending, and the Democrats are looking at the fact that they're going to have to get somebody else into office in his place to start doing all of that spending again. So that is selling a deficit down the road, but we could always just stop doing all the spending, and that would solve a lot of the problems that we have going on here. I'm telling you right now, it must be nice out elsewhere in the country. It is cold as hell right here and rainy, so I mean, around here, anybody local, which I don't know a lot of local people that watch this channel. Most of my people come from other states. Around here, I could see where people would want to be in watching a YouTuber talk about the deficit, the interstate, and the impeachment proceedings because it's cold out and there's really nothing else to go out and do. But it must be nice other places in the country because I mean, if it's nice out, especially in the fall, and you don't want to be cooped up in the house watching somebody at prime time on a Saturday night. Excuse me. Yeah, I could see where other people wouldn't do this. And like I said at the beginning of the video, this was a short notice thing because I originally wasn't going to do it. I was going to take a nap. I wasn't feeling good. My throat was a little bit sore, and that was that. But I got some of my energy back, and I'm hoping some people will trickle in here at some point. I'm not sure. I know suppressed links are probably doing some of this, but I mean, I'm looking at some of the Discord servers I participate in too, and they're pretty quiet today. This is the day I don't think I'm going to answer any questions at all today, to be completely honest. I think I'm just going to ramble for 40 more minutes, 39 more minutes, but that's going to be that, I think. Let me look at Discord, just see how fast it's moving, if it's moving at all. I don't think it's moving at all. Yeah, that's pretty lame. Well, I do want to put some other things out here for the people that are going to watch this back on the replay later, which for those of you who watch this on demand on the replay, that is awesome. I do hope that at some point you get a chance to pop in here and ask some questions of me, because that's what I'm here for, is to answer questions for the audience. But in all honesty, where was I going with this? I don't remember. Oh, I wanted to talk a bit about what's going back on the replay. I mean, there are some other things that we're going to be looking at here. I've got a newcomer coming on, Ed's World, coming up on Monday here. I just finalized the schedule of what we're going to be talking about when I do. Oh, I got a like for this. Yay! Thank you, whoever you were, because you didn't drop by for a question. Whoever you were, thank you. You're a superhero for dropping that like in there. So that's awesome of you. Yeah, I'll be having a newcomer coming on for Ed's World. Somebody I'm pretty excited for. Somebody who's expressed some interest in doing a podcast. So I am offering the chance to let the guy practice on my show and just see what it's all about. Kind of see what I do for show running. A lot of people, that's all they'll do, is they'll sit here and talk for an hour, much like I do now for the fans here. But nobody will pop in here and have a question for me today, so that's gonna be where that is. I'm not even sure what the dude's name is that's gonna be on here. I know what his Discord handle is. It's Pokemon Fetish. Some of you have probably read some of his super chats and heard his calls over on Matt and Blonde's show. He looks like he's a bit of a troll, and that's fine. I told him that he should just be himself, whatever he wants. He asked me if he wants to be serious or if he wants to be trolling. And, we want to laugh on this show. We want to be able to talk and laugh and enjoy life. So I'll figure out who he is and how to promote him. But yeah, we'll be seeing that on Monday. That's going to be good. We'll be talking more about the impeachment, because I'd rather talk a bit about that with a discussion. We'll be talking 2020. He'll answer the 3 questions. It'll be a good time, I think. Let's talk about. Oh, Stephen Ignoramus is in the chat. It's just him. And yeah, Stephen is one of the mods into this. So yeah, you'll hear me rant about not rant, but ramble about the mods earlier on in the video. I was talking about the fact that I did add mods, and yep, you are on there. John and Robert are on there. Robert is, of course, on the Generational Gap account. Jake is on the Wrench of Justice, and I put Wyatt on there too. All people that I believe would be fair and let people still talk, but step in if there was a dox or a direct attack against another user. So that is going to be that. Steven, did you have any questions for? don't know if you have any questions for me, actually, because you got to ask me a lot of them last weekend when I didn't do an Ed Talk, when I did your show instead. But yeah, if you had any questions out there, if you wanted to get the chat going, I was just about to talk about Bernie Sanders' heart attack. It is confirmed now that Sanders did have a heart attack, so that's going to be... Sanders is going to be done. That's just the end of the story. And to be completely honest, I called way back in the beginning that Elizabeth Warren was going to be the nominee, and this is just going to cement it at this point. Even if Biden wasn't old, teetering, and on the edge of failing health, what is he going to do at this point? All of Sanders' fan base, when he drops out, and if he doesn't drop out, he is dumb. And I don't want to say it like this because it's particularly nasty to say, but everyone told him it was a bad idea for him to run at almost 80 years old to begin with. His doctors are probably right now telling him that he is not in the physical health to run for the presidency right now. His family is probably saying, come home, we want to spend time with great-grandpa a little bit. If he continues to go on... Oh yeah, we're talking about this. Bernie's wife says that he's going to make the October 15th debate. Do you believe her? To be completely honest, I hope he has another heart attack on the stage on the October 15th debate, because not because I want to see any harm come to the guy, but he needs to be made aware of what his health is. I hope he lives from the heart attack that he has there, but he does not have the physical capability to continue to run for the presidency. And I saw this in the last debate. I saw it in the September debate. He was red in the face constantly. I did call Warren. I called Warren before she got in the race. Well, I think it was right after she got into the race. But yeah, everybody that's behind Biden or behind Sanders right now is going to turn around and circulate behind Warren. And that is going to be what happens with the presidency. She's got it right now. Kamala Harris is out. Buttigieg could make a play for it, but he's not going to use his intersectionality, which is going to be the only thing that's going to hold him up for the rest of this race. Biden is going to die. If Bernie Sanders doesn't die on his way to the White House, Biden will. He is also in failing health. He has no idea where he is half the time. Yep. Oh, did I just drop off my live stream because I said that? Did the YouTube gods find me and just throw me off? Steve Nicoramus says that Ed is canceled, and given the fact of what's going on here, I could actually believe that. Everything is going to coalesce behind Elizabeth Warren, and Donald Trump is going to skate to 2020 victory because Elizabeth Warren cannot think on the fly and would not stand a chance against Donald Trump in a general debate, in a general open debate. You thought Barack Obama was the teleprompter in chief? Go and have a look at Elizabeth Warren, especially when she's at the debate. You notice you didn't hear anything from Warren just about from the last time she was on the stage for the debate? There's a reason for the fact that you didn't see any of that at all, because they are trying to keep her protected from having any attacks. Like I said, I think Stephen is right. Bernie might make it to the October 15th debate, but that's just good to me to try and keep this going and try and keep Tulsi Gabbard away from Elizabeth Warren. And I definitely believe that she's, canceled for direct call for health problems. Now, I didn't call directly for a health problem except for the fact that, again, I want the guy to live. He deserves to go and live and see his socialist dreams fall apart underneath him. He's never going to make this country into a socialist utopia like he wants it to be, but Bernie Sanders just needs to drop out of the race at this point. He can't go on. He cannot continue to run for the presidency. He was ready to drop at the last debate, and then, he had his confirmed heart attack. Well, he was out on a low-stress incident, and now he wants to go back onto another high-stress debate. And then this is the guy that we want to have the launch codes. Yes, he's an isolationist, and he's just going to say, fuck him, let him do this to us, but this is the guy that's going to have to be woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning when Iran decides that they want to throw a drone at us or at least make a threat about it. he doesn't have the wherewithal to do it. Warren doesn't have the wherewithal to do it. Trump is going to skate to a victory, and that is probably going to get me canceled if calling for Bernie Sanders to have another heart attack in the next debate didn't. Which it doesn't look like it did. It looks like I'm actually still going miraculously. I guess I'm not calling enough attention from the YouTube gods yet, but that'll happen. This video is still going to process. Somebody's going to manually catch it, and my channel is going to be gone next morning. Sorry to my upcoming guest. Let's talk about baby eating. So, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was at an event this past week, and while she was at her event talking to people, somebody jumped up and suggested the fact that climate change wasn't going to be, or reducing carbon emissions rather, wasn't going to be enough. We still needed to drastically take care of the problem. Killing off the elderly wasn't going to do enough, and eating the dead wasn't going to do enough. We needed to eat the babies to prevent us from overpopulating the world and necessitating the need for clearing more arable land for farming and for, well, basically to wipe out 3/4 of the population to keep us from putting that evil, dreaded CO2 into the atmosphere. A lot of people thought that this was a troll right away, and it turns out that it was. I actually thought it was serious from the first video that I saw of it, because I see some of the craziness that is that's coming from the people over on the other side of the aisle, and it doesn't surprise me at all that somebody would have that thought. For the most part, they don't want to come out and say depopulation, but there's no other way to get to the ends that they want to get to. Now, eating babies would be an extreme, and that would be part of the reason that I think somebody would be able to pick up on the fact that it was a troll, but Styx has this absolutely right when he's talking in his videos, because in order to feed the people, if you go into a deindustrialized society, you're not going to have refrigeration anymore. So all of the food that you grow is going to need to be consumed within a few months. You're not going to have any preservation. Canning, I mean, we know how to can, but we're not going to be able to make any containers to can anymore. So, I mean, that would be an extent that you'd be able to do, but you would only be able to can certain things. Anything that you could jar in some water over a fire, essentially. God knows you're never going to be able to use your pressure canner again at that point or anything like that, but so yes, you would have just what you could do. The cow farts are destroying the atmosphere, so you wouldn't be able to run a dairy industry anymore. You could do goats, I guess, but here's a question for that too. The Democrats, the climate change wing of the Democrat Party anyway, are calling for the fact that the dairy industry is killing the atmosphere because of the cow farts. What do they intend to do about that? All life is sacred, and the life that's out there to extinct another species would be against the climate norms. What do they plan to do with all these cows, and how do they plan to prevent them from farting into the air and causing global warming, if that is even happening, which I don't believe that it is? Are you going to make the entire cattle species extinct at that point? Is that your plan? And could you come out and say it if that's actually your plan? Because I don't see any other way to do any of this, to be completely honest. But to go back to farming, I mean, without preservation, you're going to need to grow a lot more food at once to feed the population. You're going to need to find a way to do things year-round as well, which using both hemispheres, you'd be able to do that to an extent. But again, preservation is going to be hell. Canning, you could do, but refrigeration is out. So those leftovers, whatever you make, you have to eat right away. And you're going to have to be able to get more of that food out right away. Without industry, without tractors, without trucks to transport, without electricity to operate the farms into the late night and do some of the processing out of that, the best thing that you're going to have to do is A, find another beast of burden and hope that it doesn't fart methane, and then just clear entire swaths of forest in order to make arable farmland, and then boom, you're deforesting the world again. And at what point have you made a net positive? Because you haven't. You've extincted a species, you've destroyed more trees, screwed up the ecosystem. You're going to have to dip into the rainforest at some point if you need to have that much arable land. You're at a net negative without sterilizing 75% of the population and putting us into a vast point of population control. Eugenics almost would be a way to do it, which, I mean, since when has the Democrat Party, at least the Planned Parenthood wing of the Democrat Party, ever been opposed to eugenics to begin with? That's what they do. They're trying to keep the population controlled so that they can achieve their world order. Now, a lot of people go out there and try and say that it's a race thing, but I don't think it's a race thing. I think all that it is just trying to make sure that only the best genes go forward and not everybody gets a chance, like they try and say that everybody gets a chance to reproduce from. That's just my opinion here. There's no official statement out there saying that. I just want to make that out there point blank and clear. I mean, even though I'm going to get shut down for the fact that I said that in the beginning, but there is no official statement saying that the Democrat Party is eugenicist. It's just that the way that they act is what's really showing us the fact that it might be eugenics at this point. So why not just come out and say it? Just come out and say that you want to sterilize 3/4 of the population, bring the population of the world down, so that you can achieve your carbon neutral utopia generations before you would have done it naturally anyway. And I don't think we have that much left before we're in a carbon neutral society. I'm going to be completely honest about that. Now, the climate change wing of the Democrat Party is trying to accelerate that to a point that isn't feasible at this point. We don't have the technology to create a carbon neutral society, but we've been developing it for years. Honestly, Generation Alpha might make carbon neutral if we just stand back and leave them alone. We have a society right now that is against carbon, that doesn't want to pollute, and we're doing everything that we can to try and keep us from having the carbon that's doing any of this. Look at our cars. Now, I was on Stephen Ignoramus' show, and he brought up the fact that my Instagram name has auto worker in it because I used to be a mechanic. I used to work on cars. Look at what emissions have done just in the last 10 years. In the last decade in emissions, we've put diesel almost to a completely carbon neutral at this point. Anything that was made after 2010 is essentially carbon neutral. I mean, yes, they're putting carbon dioxide out, but carbon dioxide isn't bad. It's just a talking point that the climate change religion has put out there, that carbon dioxide is bad. But we've all but eliminated carbon monoxide. We've all but eliminated oxides of nitrogen, which both of those two are poison. Outright, those two are poison. And yes, we didn't need to have any of those in the air. Carbon monoxide, if it comes off your furnace, will kill you in your sleep, and you'll never know it's coming unless you have a carbon monoxide detector. So we've eliminated that from general population. We've eliminated the oxides of nitrogen, which, again, NO2 is great for us. We breathe it in every day. It's actually the most abundant thing in our atmosphere right now. But NO, NO3, and NO4 are horribly toxic for the environment and will destroy plant life. It'll destroy human life. It'll make animals sick. And within a year, we were able to almost eliminate it from our automotive emissions. And if we're doing this on automotive emissions, which is one of the biggest money driver and basically one of the biggest drivers of the economy, if we look at the fact that we had to bail GM out because they were wildly in debt because they held so much of our economy. Imagine, and I don't know what we're doing on the industrial side because I've never worked in it, but I can't imagine that we're doing anything different over there. In fact, we might be even more efficient if we're going over on the industrial side. It's funny. There was a commercial going on for Attorney General at the same time as Scott Walker was running, not this past time, but the time before, the time he got reelected. They were trying to oust the former Attorney General of the state. And they were trying to get a Democrat in so they could go and try Scott Walker to do that. They showed a factory, and it was a factory I was actually familiar with. They showed a factory on the TV, and they showed the stacks out of the factory, and they said, this is what Attorney General Schimmel wants to put into the air. This is how he wants to destroy the environment. You know what the only problem with that was? Those were steam vents for that factory. That factory ran on steam power. Yes, there was a little bit of fire coming out of the incinerator that was making the steam, but it was cleaned and it was carbon neutral before it ever got to those stacks. The only thing that was coming out of those stacks was steam. And this was the problem that they wanted. Clouds was what was coming out of there, but they were calling it toxic, noxious gases. Noxious. That is a weird word to say on the air when you weren't planning on saying it anywhere in the stream. I do apologize for that. So yeah, it's none of this is about trying to go to carbon neutral. I mean, again, they'll try and call it carbon dioxide as a form of a problem, but keep in mind the fact that we all spew out carbon dioxide constantly. Every one of us is constantly breathing out carbon dioxide. It's a side effect of human respiration and any other animal respiration. And we're counterbalanced in nature due to the fact that our plant life thrives on carbon dioxide, and a part of their photosynthetic process is taking in carbon dioxide, pulling the carbon out of it, and using it to grow, and putting out that sweet, fresh oxygen that we as people breathe in and use for respiration and to grow. It's about depopulation and it's about deindustrialization, because industry is what's leading what they call the income inequality in the world. And overpopulation is the only way that they can effectively feed the people for a long time without clearing out the rainforests that they hold so dear. And there are people that go even further than depopulation out there as well. I mean, I've read articles, opinion articles, albeit, but opinion articles out there that say that a voluntary extinction event is going to be the only way that we save the planet. Now, voluntary extinction means that we'll never be around to enjoy the planet that we have saved, but we'll make it safer for the deer and the bear to go out and kill each other and pump carbon dioxide into the air. Excuse me. And who's to say that there wasn't an intelligent society before humans came out of here either? I mean, we weren't there. Who's to say that the dinosaurs weren't doing atomic experiments? Who's to say that they didn't draw an asteroid in themselves or blow something up in the Yucatan Peninsula to cause their own extinction? I don't think that it happened that way, but to be completely honest, there was nobody around there to tell you yes or no. It could be the truth is stranger than fiction sometimes. Well, I am at 43 minutes and I have had one question, and I've actually managed to probably get my channel shut down as well on a live stream. So I'm going to go for a little bit more here, but I don't know that, again, if I'm not going to get any more questions into this, I might just cut this one early. Give my voice a rest for Monday when I have Pokemon Fetish, a fan of Matt and Blonde's, who's intending to get his own show started on my show, and we discuss the issues. I am starting to feel a little bit back in my sinuses again, so I think that's going to be it at this point. I think I'm going to call this one early. I think I'm going to continue to do this every other week, unless, of course, there's some major news event in which it requires me to come on somewhere in between and have an ed talk. Like if I get a bunch of questions on Twitter or something, or a bunch of comments on one of my videos, I might come on. And that's the thing too. I mean, the fans are going to drive this experiment that I have going on here. If you have a lot more to ask me and you reach out to me on Twitter or YouTube comments or in my email or on BitChute or anything like that, and I start getting a whole bunch more questions and comments, I'll do this more often. Right now I'm going to stick to doing an every other week schedule. We'll just get some questions rolled in and rolled up and ready to go. But we'll still be able to talk about the news. Ed's World is going to stay every week, and my solo videos are going to stay every week. But we'll do the Q&A session every other week, I think. And again, if you do a bunch of comments, we may change that. If there's enough demand for this, I will make it weekly. But yeah, that's going to be it. I think that's going to be about all for this edition of Ed Talk number 3. Thanks, Stephen Ignoramus, for coming in and asking a question out of me. And we will see you on Monday for Ed's World. We'll see you on Friday for my solo video. And we will see you in 2 weeks for another riveting edition of Ed Talk.